Hello there, everybody, and today I'm here to review Sonic the Hedgehog 3. A few months back, I did review the first two Sonic movies, and I decided to finally do the third movie since this is part of my 2024 movie reviews. I did see this on New Year's, I think a day after New Year's, but I gotta say, this movie is a lot of fun. Even though I'm not the biggest Sonic fan out there, I know my friend the Hedgehog Nerd is a bigger Sonic fan than I could ever be. But I do respect and like the lore of Sonic a bit more than the Mario lore, since, I feel like Sonic has a bit more character than most of the stories that go on in Mario. But that's a different topic. But I do like Mario and Sonic equally, I'm comparing the two, but this movie came out, I think, December 20th, so this is the perfect movie to watch on Christmas, but you were probably busy with the holidays, so you probably had to wait to see this movie if you're busy, but it is definitely a bigger step up than Sonic 2. So this is about the rise of Shadow the Hedgehog, played by the amazing Keanu Reeves. Basically, this is John Wick, Neo from the Matrix, playing a hedgehog. But apparently, Shadow is out for revenge after learning of his dark past. But it causes mayhem that will lead to Sonic teaming up with his teammates to go up against Shadow, with also the return of Dr. Robotnik, who we thought died in the second movie, but no, he survived his explosion and he has been in hiding ever since. But we also meet his granddad. We'll get more into him later. But I do really like this movie because it's just fast pacing. There's a lot more going on, and it has good backstory with the Sonic lore and Shadow lore. But the main thing that goes on is Sonic and his teammates. He's with Tails and Knuckles, the Echidna Warrior. So I accidentally called him a hedgehog in my second Sonic review. So sorry for that mistake. I don't know why I got the two mixed up, but Knuckles is the Echidna Warrior. But apparently Sonic is also celebrating his Earth Day, which is the anniversary when he arrived on Earth, and he's celebrating with Tom and Maddie and Ozzy the dog, who can now have subtitles when he's talking. He's apparently jealous of Sonic because I love the subtitles where he says, "You stole my humans," which is typical dog behavior. But apparently Sonic is very loved, and he is celebrating his anniversary, but it's interrupted by the agents, who is played by the awesome Kristen Ritter, Jessica Jones. I was surprised they announced she was going to be in this movie. I was not expecting her at all, but apparently Shadow is causing some mayhem in the city of Tokyo, I'm pretty sure, and Sonic, Knuckles, and Tails all team up to go stop Shadow. I even like the scene where when they all leave, Maddie tells them to make good choices. Even Ozzy gives them paw, which was nice. But the trio end up going to Tokyo, and they meet Shadow, who looks deadly, and his CGI-ness looks really good. But apparently Shadow broke out of his little lab, who's apparently been experimented on, and now he has woken up 50 years later. But apparently the trio try to take a stance at Shadow, but apparently it just doesn't work out. Even Knuckles says he's more impressive than the Hedgehog I fought previously. I thought that line was hilarious from Knuckles. But apparently it leads to a giant goose chase where Shadow is riding his motorcycle, which looks badass. But it leads to Sonic, Knuckles, and Tails meeting up with I think his name is Commander Walters, who is apparently involved in a lot with Shadow, who apparently was their test subject when he crash landed on Earth 50 years ago. This makes me confused because I know I'm not the biggest Sonic fan, like I said, but I'm wondering, does this make Shadow the first Hedgehog, or is Sonic the first Hedgehog? I don't know. You tell me below. But apparently Shadow befriended a little girl. I'm so sorry, I don't remember her name. I think her name was also Maddie. So sorry. But apparently Shadow was really good friends with this little girl. But apparently tragedy happened as the warehouse, the station that all the army people worked at, apparently it blew up, causing the little girl to die in Shadow's arms. And it's very sad for Shadow, as he is a tragic character if you really think about it. And some people like making this argument about Shadow being an edgelord. I never really understood that argument. What makes him an edgelord? I don't think he is at all. But apparently, this is what gives Shadow his character arc so far, because he actually has a cinematic story if you really think about it. But apparently, this is at the restaurant. It's interrupted by Dr. Robotnik's drones, and actually Commander Walters ends up dying by getting crushed by rubble during the battle with the drones. But Sonic, Knuckles, and Tails are given a key that Shadow's going after, which is apparently a gigantic like weapon thing, that battle station that will destroy the Earth. But apparently it's revealed later that Dr. Robotnik is after this device with his granddad. But apparently all the characters escape. But now Christian Ritter thinks Sonic is the bad guys, and because Commander Walters ends up dying, I'm surprised they actually killed him off in this movie. I mean, I know I don't know if he was familiar with people in this movie, if people were familiar with that character, but it was surprising they killed him off. But the Sonic characters get away, and they're gonna plot their next move, but they're interrupted by a motorcycle guy who's revealed to be Dr. Stone. And the best line is in this whole movie is where Knuckles says, "It's the goat milker." And then Dr. Stone says, "It's the goat milker. Relax. I'm not here to fight." But apparently it's revealed. This is where it's revealed Dr. Robotnik is alive, and he's watching rom-coms, and it was disturbing. But apparently he has gained weight, and he's just hanging out like a bum. But the Sonic team is ready to recruit him to go find this key that Shadow is after. But it leads them to going back to the old science lab later when Dr. Robotnik ends up getting his suit back together. He even takes Sonic's little fur thing. But they all go into the warehouse, and they all split up. But Sonic teams up with Robotnik. Tails teams up with Dr. Stone. I think Knuckles, I forget. I think he goes by himself, I'm pretty sure. But I even like the line where they say, "Ooh, you scared of the dark? Scared of ghosts?" But apparently Knuckles is scared of ghosts when he was watching Casper. And he's like, "Oh, nothing scares an Echidna warrior." But once we see that clip of that movie, it becomes super funny. But apparently they all, well, like I said, they all split up. But all of them are kidnapped by the mysterious jump scare of Shadow the Hedgehog, and they all get chained to death. But this is where Robotnik finds out that he does have family, because he's always felt alone, like no one cared for him. But it's revealed to be Gerald Robotnik, played by Jim Carrey as well. So this is technically Jim Carrey's last performance. I don't know if it is, if they do a Sonic 4 and Jim Carrey's going to be in it, so it might not be his last performance, but I'll get more into that later. But apparently these two are related. We don't even know who Dr. Robotnik's other family members are, and we probably never will know, since it's up for a mystery. But apparently Robotnik and Jared all betray Sonic and the team as they are going to go after the key for the giant machine that will destroy Earth. But Robotnik doesn't know at first what this is all about. But the two do spend time together, which was nice. They go through a hologram of what the childhood Robotnik could have had, and it makes Agent Stone jealous. And I even like the line earlier where Tails says, "Oh, aren't you two friends?" He's like, "Oh, yeah, we're definitely friends." So yeah, it's funny when Dr. Stone is basically in love with Dr. Robotnik, but Dr. Robotnik is basically just like, he just views him as like a partner or in crime or whatever. I don't know why I referred to it like that, but so sorry, but later in the movie, Sonic ends up using a ring with the help of Knuckles. They're able to go back to Tom's house and Maddie's house, and Ozzy's all dressed up like in a mitten like outfit, and I thought that scene was cute. But Tom and Maddie are just exploring hobbies with nothing much to do, since the Sonic characters are just doing their own thing. But they decide to stop it all and decide to help Sonic and his team, as they are going to go to the secret lab where the key is. But we even see a Tom puppet, and even Maddie says it's creepy. I definitely agree. Puppets are just creepy, but they have a plan. They're basically going to find a way to turn off the shield at the government base, which is revealed to be in London. So they're going to go to London and basically plan out to steal the key. But it turns out the two Robotniks are actually going to the base as well. But basically Tom and Maddie put on disguises where they dress up as Maddie dresses up like the sister from the last movie, and Tom dresses up as the I forget his name, but he was the dude who was gonna marry Maddie's sister. But apparently it's wild that they're in this movie, but they're secretly not in this movie. The characters are in it, but the actors are in it, but they're just disguised the whole time. But this tech is definitely interesting, as they're able to disguise themselves as anybody. But Tom and Maddie end up going into the base, and Sonic is slowly waiting, but he is able to find a way to get into the base after the two end up sneaking into the hard drive room, and they use some hard drive. But this is where they do find out the Robotniks are going in there. They even use the face of Christian Ritter, which was nice. But Sonic ends up just going in there in a nick of time with the help of Tails. But this is where we get probably the best scene in this whole movie. The two Robotniks end up finding a laser room, which has the key they're looking for. And we get this infamous scene where they're both dancing. I thought that was easily the best scene. I was wondering how Jim Carrey was able to do it, since, he's a much older actor now. But they were able to pull it off. But they are stopped by Christian Ritter. And even when Sonic goes in there, he ends up getting stopped, as they're all frozen to the floor. And yeah, this is Christian Ritter's plan. I know she has a name in this, but she... Oh, wait, it's Commander Rockwell. My bad. But Commander Rockwell basically trapped them where they want them. But Tom and Maddie also get captured. But this is where they have their backup plan. Knuckles is at the top of the clock tower in London, and he basically smashes his way through the base. But giant rubble is dropped as they are trying to grab the control pad to stop everyone who is glued to the floor. But I think Tom was almost hit by the rubble. But they end up trying to have a plan where Tom is going to disguise himself as Commander Walter so he can get the key from Commander Rockwell. But he ends up actually working, but it's unfortunately stopped when Shadow shows up, and he ends up thinking Commander Walters is actually there, but it's Tom. But he ends up punching Tom, and I almost thought James Marsden was gonna die in this movie, but spoilers, he doesn't die. But This devastates Sonic as he believes he has caused Tom to get seriously hurt, and it leads to him going to the hospital. But it kind of reminds me of X-Men Last Stand, where, spoilers, Cyclops dies in that movie, and this is the third of the trilogy, just like in this Sonic movie. But Tom doesn't die, of course, but we almost think he does. But this is where Sonic actually gets serious, since, he's the jokester type, but he has decided to finally use the Master Emerald. Their plan was gonna use it, but Sonic decides not to use it because it's too dangerous. But it leads to a fight between him and Knuckles, as Knuckles knows where it is. But Sonic ends up losing his edge, and he's able to steal the Master Emerald, from which is revealed to be being used by Wade, who I don't know if I mentioned him the last two movies, but I was wondering if I had to watch the Knuckles show, because I watched the Knuckles show after watching Sonic 3, but it turns out you don't need to watch the Knuckles show to know what goes on in this movie. But I guess you can learn about the dynamic between Knuckles and Wade through the Knuckles show. I don't know. But the Knuckles show is a different story. But I even like how Knuckles said, "You have to go through him. It is guarded by a fearsome warrior." But Sonic takes the Master Emerald, and he becomes Super Sonic. And he's able to go to the base where the two Robotniks are using to basically destroy the world. But Jared Robotnik basically reveals that he wants to use the giant machine to basically just annihilate the whole Earth, including himself. And Robotnik thinks that is crazy, but he believes he wants to rule the world. But Jared ends up saying, "Oh, humanity is a failed experiment." And he basically tells Robotnik that he has been rejected his whole life, and he has no one down there who cares for him. But he tries to assure him that they have each other, but he just wants to go with the evil plan. But I don't know why, but this just shows how tragic of a character Dr. Robotnik is, because he's basically been bullied. It was somehow noted in the first movie, but he didn't really have anybody that rooted for him, so he kind of just went down the dark path. And now we understand why he struggles with certain things, but it doesn't justify all the bad things he does throughout these movies. Definitely doesn't justify it at all, for sure. But is interrupted by Super Sonic. But he is confronted by Shadow, and it leads to Shadow trying to make Sonic lose his edge. It basically said, "Ooh, oh, didn't you have a friend named Tom?" And then he tries to talk to him about family, but it causes Sonic to almost kill Shadow on the moon. But he decides not to, as he hears Tom's words, and it makes Sonic stop doing what he's doing, and he takes off the power of the Master Emerald. Even Shadow even touched it after fighting Sonic, and he becomes Super Shadow. But the two are able to finally relate to each other, as we do find out what happened to Shadow and why he is the way he is. He basically lost Maddie, the little girl he loved, but it drove Shadow to become the way he is, and Sonic feels he lost Pop Claw, and that's the reason why he's sad, but he was guided to do the right thing. But the two are able to reconcile, and that's what I like about it. We have this moment of humanity between the two. But the two basically take the power of the Master Emerald, and they become the Super Sonic and Super Shadow, and they are able to take out the drones from the Robotniks. But Robotnik decides to betray his grandfather, and it leads to the two to fight, and they even use like crab-like machinery. But it almost leads to Robotnik falling into the vacuum of space. And he even says, like, oh, what, you love me or whatever? But Robotnik falls, but he is rescued by the surprise of Knuckles and Tails, who have used the ring to stop him from falling. But I love how they use a little bit of his sonic tail, the fur, to basically zap Jared, and he basically just falls into the machine and then dies. And that's it for that character. But because the weapon's about to destroy the Earth, they have no choice but to find a way to blow up the machine before it sets off. But this is where we get the moment where Sonic ends up falling into the abyss, but he is saved by Knuckles and Tails. And Shadow decides to make the big move and decides to sacrifice himself to save the universe. And Robotnik makes a final speech saying, "This is Dr. Ivo Robotnik, and I believe I could finally save the world," or whatever. He says, like, he spent his whole life trying to rule it. He might as well save it. But he says, he makes his final broadcast, and he tells Agent Stone, "Thank you for caring for me." And Dr. Stone is, like, devastated what Robotnik's about to do. But he says, "Thanks for nothing." And the whole machine explodes, making the final sacrifice. But this is wild to see, because this is basically Jim Carrey coming out with a bang in his career. Basically, could be considered his last movie, since I think he said he was going to retire. But if he does return in Sonic 4, I hope it's good. But as if Dr. Robotnik is dead, I don't know if he is. I think he did die in the explosion. It's clearly shown in the movie. But he might return, since I heard the rumors the fourth movie could be a time travel movie. We'll just have to wait and see. But if this is Dr. Robotnik / Jim Carrey's last performance, I think he went out with a bang, making the final sacrifice in a movie like this. But our characters are saved. Sonic reconciles with Knuckles and Tails, and he learns that he must work as a team and not use it for selfishness, but or revenge. But the characters celebrate. Tom is alive. The characters hug and make their final race, and that's Sonic 3. And we also get a post-credits scene where Sonic fights Metal Sonic, and it's revealed he gets help from Amy. So I'm wondering who's going to voice Amy. Some people think it should be Scarlett Johansson. I'm down for that. Black Widow voicing Amy. We'll just have to wait and see for the fourth movie, since that's what it looks like it could be setting up. But some people are saying the fourth movie could be the last Sonic movie. I feel that just isn't enough, because it feels like they could flesh out so much lore with the Sonic. Because Sonic has a lot of lore. I'm wondering, they could be doing so much more. But we'll just have to wait and see, because I hope this isn't the last Sonic movie. But whatever we get, I'm down to see it. So Sonic 3 was easily one of my favorite movies of 2024. It's kind of weird putting it on this list, but I understand there's a lot of Sonic fans out there, and some people probably think there are much bigger movies than Sonic 3, but I completely understand that this movie meant a lot to kids, Sonic fans alike, and it definitely touched my heart a bit with how much beautiful messages they had with this movie, and so many good moments, and surprisingly how many characters died in this movie. There was a lot of stakes for this movie for sure, and that's what made it work. I'm glad they didn't do the weird subplot like they did in the second movie. This movie is just straightforward. But whatever we get next with the Sonic franchise, I'm down for it. But the final movie review I'm doing for the 2024 movie reviews is Deadpool and Wolverine. Look forward to that next week. So with that being said, thanks for watching. I'll see you all next time.